Okay, we will please bring to open the Tuesday, August 20th, 2024 regular city council meeting. If you would all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item is to approve, I believe this should be an amended agenda because we're adding an item.
Mayor Ryan, just for reference, item F5, information was provided to the council earlier today, so that will still be on the agenda, but information did go out to you. We'll walk through that information. And then item F6 can be removed from the agenda. We won't have an update tonight, but I will follow up with the council with more information in the near future.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make apologies. Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is the consent calendar. This is items that are considered routine by the council and be enacted by one motion.
Actually, I did have a question on one item there. Maybe Jenny, you can help me out. I was going through the check register. We have a check to City of Brainerd. I was curious as to what that actually pertains to. Could have asked you offline, but forgot until now. 4,100.
You know, offhand, go for it. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
It is for prosecution costs for our contract. So we
Gotcha.
pay that every quarter.
Understood. Thank you. I don't know why it stood out this month, but it did. Mr. Mayor, I'll approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is open forum. This is the time for anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council to that on an item that is not on the agenda. We'll give you time to do address us at that time. We're covering that. But if there's anything they wish to bring up to the council, we'll open public forum. Seeing no one, we'll close public forum. Second item under open forum is the ADA transition plan, a presentation from Woodseth.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Alex Bitter. I'm a civil engineer with Woodseth. And we were asked to prepare an ADA transition plan for the city of Nisswa. This whole process started last year, talking with city staff, and there had been a couple complaints to city staff about some of the ADA facilities, and we'll get into what that is in a little bit, but it's basically sidewalks and access for disabled people and even abled people. So what we do is we provided a proposal to complete the ADA transition plan, and we'll just go through kind of each of those parts. There's a lot to the entire plan, so we'll just kind of cover this at a high level. And if you have any more questions, this is more or less just a public informational meeting. And then we'll go over the final report with final, more in-depth findings at a later date. So the Americans with Disability Act, so ADA, was introduced in 1990, which basically prohibits discrimination against those that are disabled. This covers a wide variety of areas. I mean, buildings, everything, but this ADA transition plan is geared towards public entities. So part of that is geared towards, there's a section Title II in there where public agencies with greater than 50 employees are required to do this type of ADA plan. And then also on top of that, which is the last bullet, if there's federal funding available, and if the city qualifies, but they don't have this ADA transition plan in place, then they might not get that federal funding. So we didn't want to exclude the city from possibly getting that funding in the future. It doesn't sound like you're going for any right now, but you never know. So, this is a self-evaluation. It's hired by a sub-consultant. But what that self-evaluation is, it looks like at the policies, practices, and programs the city already has in place. And then we go around and take a look at all the pedestrian access routes, or PARs, which is the most common term for that. So that whole pedestrian access route evaluation was done this July, in the public right of way, and also on city property as far as parking stalls and things like that. So just a quick summary of that. There's approximately 111 pedestrian ramps. 72 of them were found to be non-compliant. 62 would require a full reconstruction, whereas 10 of them you could just grind down. If there's a vertical discrepancy over a 1/4 inch, then that can typically be ground down, very minor fix. As far as non-compliant trail and sidewalks, there's about 540 feet. And then 3 traffic signals, and all of those met the ADA requirements. So this is very small, but this is just a snippet, one little area of the deliverable. What this is going to end up being is in the city's GIS system that is available, or is being worked on and developed right now. So they'll be able to log on to here, and you can zoom right to a ped ramp and see if it's compliant, non-compliant. Typically, we say in there what the problem is with it, if it's just a full reconstruction, or if it's just a minor fix for that ped ramp to get it into compliance. So we obviously looked at the city as a whole. And this is just a snippet or an example of what you're gonna see when you open up the GIS program. So part of this is going to help the city develop the policies and procedures when they get a complaint under new construction, what to do when there is a complaint or an issue. So it's a very important part to the city if they have, especially a city with a lot of tourist traffic. And, you don't want to have, you want to be able to have a good response if there are issues, and show that you're being proactive with some of these sidewalks, because there's some issues out there. So one of the priority areas that we looked at was the downtown area, since there is such heavy foot traffic. Obviously, like I said, we looked at the whole city area, city limits, but we did concentrate and spent a lot of time downtown on Main Street, Hell Street, and Lakers Lane. It's difficult because there are ped ramps in the city that aren't necessarily owned by the city. There's ped ramps that are owned by other agencies. Those typically aren't on the responsibility of the city. It all depends on how the agreements are written for care of that facility to some extent. And then we're gonna go over some costs, but typically when we talk about doing these improvements, we talk about these things are non-compliant. That doesn't mean you have to go fix everything right away. That would be financially huge in a lot of cases. Nisswa is, relatively small, but still a very large expense on something that, when you go through and do a road project, you're changing a lot of different things with the road profile. A lot of times the road profile is causing the ADA issue. So you're chasing all those issues. So if you just go and attack each ped ramp individually, you might not necessarily fix it. So the goal is to have this plan, and then as the city does improvements to their streets, then you go through and make those appropriate ADA corrections. So as part of the report, and it's a major portion of the report and the process and everything, is to identify an ADA coordinator. And that person is Stephen Timblin. Perfect. So we'll get into some of those responsibilities shortly. So kind of the whole plan that we've tried to lay out is public participation is very important. There was an advertisement in the local paper to submit any complaints or anything to the city. Sounds like nothing was submitted, which isn't very uncommon. A lot of times you're not going to hear anything unless people are, it's in the moment. This happened, I tripped, I fell, I couldn't get my wheelchair over this. You don't see a lot of people that have that just in the back of their mind a lot of times. Also, the public informational meeting, which is tonight. So the city would be accepting those public comments from July 19th when it was published until today. And then we'll do one final review of the report at the September 17th council meeting. So as part of the procedure, it's very important that the city makes this document once it's approved public. A lot of entities just put that on the city website, and then if people come in and have questions on that, they can be directed towards the city website and access the report there. It is a living document. It's something that's going to be continuously updated. So that's very important to remember. It's not consistent. We'll touch on a little bit. So there is a procedure, which is outlined in the Appendix D, as we note there. I won't go word for word, but basically you get a complaint. You have a time frame to address the complaint. If they don't like how you have addressed it or want something more, they can appeal that and then talk with the city administrator. So the initial complaints go through the ADA coordinator. If that individual can't appease that person, then it goes to the city administrator. And then they kind of deal with it from there and try to resolve the issue as best they can. So, like I said, this is a living document. As you complete road projects, you're going to want to go in, do ADA evaluation of those ones that were just improved, and then you can update either the report or you can just update the GIS. A lot of communities just update the GIS and then they'll revisit the report every 10 years-ish. There's not a timeline on when a city has to update this report. It's kind of just as the city sees fit. Other communities that we're working with have gone either on a 7 or 10, 15. So 10 seems like a nice round number to update that report. So if that's what the city would want to do, that's something that can be included in the report. That every 10 years, the city is going to take another whole look at everything, update everything, and just keep updating it. Like I mentioned a couple times, the city's developing a GIS system, and that's going to be crucial to this because it's really slick to go in there and update these items as they're improved. So if the city was kind of going to go tackle all of the 62 ped ramps to be reconstructed, that could cost about $310,000. Obviously, that's very dependent on the bidding climate and how busy people are, how far spread out these are, what changes need to actually happen to make those things compliant. Like I said, it could be a larger problem than just the actual ped ramp itself. So as a total, it's estimated just shy of 320,000 to improve all of these. But like I said, it's not typically in the budget to just go in and make all these improvements. These improvements are done over time with other street improvements, and that is totally okay with the whole process that's allowed. Any questions that you may have?
Are any of the 62 pedestrian ramps, do any of them that we need to do they belong to the other entities you mentioned, or?
So there may be a couple. So we went through it, the whole report and map and everything is being reviewed by city staff. It is our understanding that we got all the city facilities. There might be some overlap in a few cases, but that's, we're reviewing with city, and if we miss some, we'll go get them. If we have some that we got information on that aren't the cities, we'll exclude that from the GIS system. So.
Anyone else have any questions? See none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, and if I could, just want to thank Alex and Avery for their work on this project. It has been really informative. There is also a really well-done video from the Minnesota Department of Transportation about ADA accessibility. If you're interested in that, I can send you that link. There's also a league webinar on ADA if you're interested in that as well. Both are really well done, but we appreciate your help and working towards getting the final report. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is reports, city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Good evening again, City Council. My report is in your packet. Couple of items just to highlight. Tomorrow is our kickoff meeting for the Downtown Master Plan, which will be, we're long awaited and looking forward to getting the group of individuals together and starting those planning efforts. So we will keep you updated on the progress with that group. Also, just wanting to remind the public and council that MnDOT is, has another survey out for their corridor study, so phase 2, looking for feedback on specific ideas for future intersection improvements along the highway. That'll be open, I believe, until September 9th, so there is still a few weeks for that. And as we discussed a little while ago, we are in full swing of budget season and appreciate departments' efforts to put together their budget information. It's a lot of work to put that together, especially during the summer months. And thank you to Maggie for putting together all the spreadsheets and details that go into that as well. We're making really good progress and look forward to continuing that conversation next month with the council. That is all I have for you, unless there are questions. Thank you.
Quick comment on the trail. Remind me, I have an update for you with the landowner. He asked me to reach out to.
If you haven't, are you saying you have an update?
Yeah.
We
I have an
can
update that.
talk
Yeah, just
offline on
remind
that.
me. Yeah, we
Great.
can talk offline, but remind me.
Thank you.
Next item, city attorney.
Good evening, everybody. Nothing specific to report here, just have worked on various things with city staff and Jenny over the course of the last 30 days.
City engineer.
Yeah, just like the city attorney, I've been busy working with city staff on numerous items. Yeah, hopefully we'll keep working on them and get some things done here.
Does anyone have questions for anyone? Otherwise, we'll go to new business. First item on new business, approve resolution authorizing joint grant application for Gull Lake Trail. Does anyone have any questions? Read through it. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor will make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the joint grant application for the Gull Lake Trail as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is approve resolution authorizing direct purchase for Wester.
This is in regards to the final Gull Lake Trail project.
Any,
Mhm.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the direct purchase for the Wester property for the Gull Lake Trail.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 3, Public Works, direction reference road bond engineering.
I can start this one off if you would like.
Please.
Great. So in your packet tonight, you have a couple of recommendations for consideration. One recommendation comes from the Public Works Committee from their July meeting. Upon discussion at that meeting and planning for the 2025 road bond project, the committee recommended to bring to City Council consideration to go out for quotes for engineering services for the bond. Upon discussion of that recommendation after the fact, Tom, our Public Works Director, and I did discuss that. And we do want to bring to council's consideration not to take that route due to the timeline involved and the fact of the delay that would put on this road bond project. So while it's a great question and something that we can certainly consider for projects moving forward, going the route of soliciting quotes for engineering would mean that we wouldn't complete the road bond project in 2025, and that is a big concern for Tom and myself. So there are some different quotes provided by Widseth. Bill would be able to speak to the different ones for consideration. With respect to staff's recommendation, we would only recommend that we move forward with the plans and specs portion of the project, and then we would step forward with bidding and potentially construction observation at a future date, but really focusing on the one step we need to move the project forward at this time, and then take the future steps as it comes. That's a high-level summary. Happy to answer questions, and certainly Bill can as well.
Does anyone have questions for Jenny?
I guess I do.
Okay.
So obviously I'm the liaison for this, you know, and stuff too. And I guess I'm gonna question why we have that committee then, if we're not going to take their recommendation. What are we doing? I mean, that's a legitimate question for the council.
My question is, why didn't that come up in January or February? And just in the past meeting? I mean, if they had reservations, they should have brought that up. That's my opinion. They should have brought that up earlier.
Well, what came out of that discussion too, to update the council on, is just the process that we have as the council, as we're looking at these bigger dollar amounts, bigger values. What do we set forth as the city as, hey, this number has tripped a certain dollar amount, a certain frame, a certain percentage, where we are gonna get multiple bids on stuff, you know, as these dollar amounts increase, the projects increase, you know. Obviously, you know, we just had the budget meeting with the bonding, you know, I mean, the price of all this is quadrupled. And it was the consensus of the committee that as these prices just keep increasing in cost, you know, we have to look at every avenue of the project, you know, to see if there's any ways to save money, because we're talking real money, real dollars, you know, on this. I mean, we're talking, you know, just the road bond stuff we just saw, you know, we're talking millions of dollars, and just looking at everything. So nothing against Woodseth, but as a council, what are we, you know, what's a dollar amount where we're like, hey, at $100,000 project or at a $500,000 project, you know, we're gonna, you know, let's just take the roof project here. We're gonna get multiple projects or bids or quotes for a roof project here, you know, kind of the same dollar amount as this, you know, why? What are we doing? Also, the concern was from a couple of the people on the committee with more expertise in this, just looking at the percentage. It was their viewpoint that the percentage was higher than kind of an industry standard. And they were asking why, just as an industry standard, it was at a higher percentage. And so I'm not sure if all of you have watched that meeting, you know, and we're up to speed with the concerns. But I guess right away, that would be my input on this is, you know, just, you know, take this as an example. We continue to move forward with these larger dollar amounts, whether it be parks or whatever, that we need to evaluate every aspect of it. And what is our policy? What's our procedure for doing that? And I think that was the main question that came out of that meeting.
Well, my opinion is I'd like to see this start going forward, and then when for the 2026, that gets started in January, you know, what you're talking about. You know,
Yeah, we just got some of the numbers last meeting, so why wasn't this brought up? We didn't have the numbers, we didn't have the information at that time.
When were the initial numbers put out?
Like the You're talking about the construction cost and all that kind of stuff, or our proposal?
Your proposal.
When were you asked?
That was some time ago, wasn't it?
Well, the initial proposal, I'm just looking at the date, that was, I think, discussed by the committee in July.
Right.
I don't know if if there was anything provided in June. I don't
No,
No, okay, so the proposal was provided in July
right.
for that. The road bond cost initial was done by Joe DeBell back in December,
Yep.
January. So I know that this has been discussed by the committee at different pieces throughout this year. But the committee just saw this proposal at its last meeting.
And just something to bring up is, the fee that we're asking for, the standard is roughly 8%. And that kind of depends on what the total cost of the construction project is. And we're right at that, roughly. Depends on what the construction cost is, but, and, kind of what the contingency might be. So we're very close to that number. And then what we discussed at the Public Works Committee meeting, we had included in the construction administration in there also, and construction, and basically all the in-construction services, observation, staking, and all that kind of stuff. And that was less than, normally a number is like 10%, and that was actually less than that. So it was reasonable.
Combined, everything was what, 17-18%?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Right. So it's just, I think, maybe not pertaining to this project or this issue, but a conversation to have with us as we continue to move forward with these larger projects. Obviously, everything has gotten much more expensive since 2020. The dollar amounts are going up huge. I don't know, we just had the budget meeting, to talk to the general public on, are we doing our due diligence in all the different areas that we can as we evaluate these projects, in making sure that we're getting the best bang for our dollar, and B, what is criteria that we're gonna use as we move forward with any project to trip the trigger for us to do this, to go out and look at competitive bids all the way through, from project management to engineering to, whatever it might be. And so I think that is the bigger question that was brought up with this, and so I think, it pertains to this, but a conversation maybe that we need to have, at a different time, or a workshop, to just talk about this as we move ahead in the future.
So do you want to slow this down?
Well,
2025 road.
I'm just
No, no.
asking, what's everyone's comfort level? I mean, when you add all this up,
Well,
we're not getting it bid out, but we're signing up for almost $500,000 worth of work without getting a bid. $500,000 worth of work with no competitive bid. And I'm just going, $500,000 is a big number without getting a competitive bid. We're going to do $500,000 worth of work on this building here. And we just talked about the whole process for that, about going out and getting bids. But now here we are looking at this other project, and we're like, well, we're going to spend another $500,000 and not get competitive bids. And
Well, let's correct the record. We're spending 260,000, correct?
that's only for part
That,
of it.
we're not looking at the last phase of the project at this point, and that is subject to going out for bids if we want to, or whatever the council may decide at that time.
So that's
The
what we got in
process,
this.
I hear a lot about, I'm picking up process stuff and everything, and that's great. The bottom line is this. In 2018, I believe, is when we let the last bond. The 2024 or 25 bonding streets and stuff should have started then. We should be having basically this discussion January of this year. There's no reason we didn't have this discussion. This has been something that I was liaison to with Tom's department for a number of years. And one of the problems I got is with the whole thing is why are we here today at this point? If we don't move forward, we don't have a 25 bond. We should be, I mean, I would, for the 26 bond, I think we should be having this discussion we're having right now for the 2026 bond. I would be happy with that because we already know what streets we're going to be doing. So we can have a workshop and discuss processes. That's great. That's fine. There's always a better way to build a mousetrap. But the fact of the matter is that this has been on every public works meeting agenda all year long. Why are we only at this point now? And to go out for bids due to the dollar amount, I understand the reasoning for that. We get behind that, but I don't think we have a choice on this bid simply because we got to get the 2020. I don't know how many of you have gotten calls from people about the roads and streets in town.
Mhm.
I've received a number. I mean, it's certainly not knocking my door down, but a number, enough to know that there's enough people out there that are concerned about it. We can't afford to put it off.
So I guess my
So-
question, John, is I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, I just got on as the liaison to so why are we here? Who can answer that question? Why was this just in July and
That's
not in January?
I can tell you who can answer that question. That's staff, but not here at a public meeting. This is for you to sit down with Tom, us to sit down with Tom, maybe at a workshop, or you and Jenny and Tom sit down. How do we move the process? Keep it on track, keep it moving forward, keep it, if we're gonna entrust staff to do this without oversight on a day-to-day basis, because some staff have said they don't want that kind of oversight. If we're gonna do that, then we have to be able to rely on staff to do it. Now, my question is, are we as a council, are we as a city giving staff the proper tools to get the job done?
So no, so then that's what
So
I'm
my
getting at.
answer to your question is simple. You and Tom should sit down and discuss that. And then with Jenny, the three of you can come up if we need to change process. I wish all five of us could sit down together with staff and Jenny and the whole staff and have a closed meeting, but we can't. Yeah, I know our city attorney would be a little upset with us if we did that. So.
Well, that's
we
what
can't
I'm
do it.
saying. I guess I'm getting at, maybe we need some sort of workshop. Just because as we're going out and looking at all these bids, all these proposals.
But a workshop to propose what? That's why I say you and Tom, I would recommend that you and Tom, what I would do if I was in
I'm
your
talking
shoes.
about the process.
Right.
We're the leaders. What is our process
The
to give
process-
the staff so they can do our job? It starts with us.
I don't know that staff doesn't have what they need to do their job, Joe. It starts with you as a liaison or me as a liaison, sitting down with that staff and having a discussion. Why aren't we further ahead? What do we need to put in place? So.
Sure,
my-
that's fine. I
So-
guess what my question with the council is, are we okay spending $500,000 potentially without getting another bid? I mean, and where do we do that? And where don't we do that and why? Because I think
Great question. We
I
can
think-
have that discussion at another time, but today let's look at what's in front of us.
that is what is in
No,
front of us.
What's in front of us is, do we move forward with this? Do we take the recommendation of the department head, Tom, and the city administrator? Or do we take the recommendation of the Public Works Committee? And the fact is that if we go with the recommendation of the Public Works Committee as presented, there is no 2025 road bond. If we take the recommendation of the city administrator and the Public Works Director, we still have to come back and look at the last portion of this, which would be 200,000 or 100 and some thousand, whatever it was, for the end run, the staking, I believe it is, and the observation. and
Construction
stuff.
services.
And all that. Okay, that's not included in this. So the real question is, do we want a road bond for 2026 or 25 or not? That's the question that we're having here. All the other stuff, I'd be happy to sit down, grab a cup of coffee with you and go over it, because I'm sure there's ways we could make the process quicker, easier for you.
Yeah, for sure. And
You know.
I would also think at the next Public Works Committee meeting, you know, they're gonna need an explanation why their recommendation was discarded,
Because we need to have a 2025 road bond.
right? I guess,
I
yeah.
mean, that's one explanation. But anyway. So the motion, the question in front of us is, as I just laid out. So I don't know what we wanted, what the council wants to do.
Has there been conversation? I mean, I did watch, I would say 80% of the hour and 45-minute long Public Works meeting. Couldn't finish the rest. Was there a consensus that, or at least I should say a strong belief that we are going to be able to have some savings by getting an additional quote or two that's going to be justifiable to push this out? Because we're looking at two options. Obviously going the route that the Public Works Committee suggested, and then the second route would be what Tom is suggesting. But going the route of the Public Works with respect to that committee, and I think we respect all committees here, asking them to take their time to come and do their work. Do they believe, or is there a belief that it's going to be a 1, 2, 5, 7.5% savings across the board on that specific line?
If you watch the meeting, I'm not the expert there, you know, there's a couple former individuals on that committee that have a lot of background knowledge in this. They seem to think the overall thing, instead of 17-18%, would probably be down for a total down around the 10 to 12%. I don't know what that does for numbers. Once again, I'm not the expert on that. What I am just trying to convey out is, I think we need to take a step back, look at it, talk to it. I don't know, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, and this isn't so much whether Woodseth's numbers are correct or incorrect. It is what is our process as a city gonna be as we continue to move forward and these numbers get astronomically larger than they've been in the past.
Right.
You know, I guess that's the point that I'm trying to convey here tonight.
Yep.
And that was the consensus from them. They threw out their opinion and their knowledge and their background, which that is their background and knowledge, and that's what they threw out. Whether it's worth doing it or not, that's obviously would be to be determined. I'm just looking at it and going, the process, boy, when we start talking this kind of numbers, we need a system to have in place for these committees, for anything with parks, roadworks, whatever, to go, hey, this is gonna be our standard operating procedure, because, you know, everything is so much more expensive. And I think that's, you know, yeah, it might be too late right now, John. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, hey, we need to get this resolved quickly, because look at all the stuff that we're up against.
Right.
And we need to operate the same and consistent with every project that comes before us as a council, and just not saying, okay, yeah, we're gonna sign off on these large dollar amounts without knowing that.
Right.
I don't know. In this case, we're not gonna know. We don't know if there's savings, but you know, if there is a 8% savings on $500,000, that's a big number. You know?
Mayor Ryan, if I could, I did share with the committee, but for the council's benefit as well. Right or wrong, staff has been consistent in our process with respect to the road bond, in that we have used our city engineer for those projects. So even though the dollar for the project has grown, that has been our process. And I would say, I don't think the council has to adopt the exact same process for every project, but certainly earlier on in the conversation, we should be asking the question so that we are all on the same page about what direction do we want to go with respect to each project, because they're very unique and they're different. It's been very efficient to have our city engineer be the one to help us with the road project because they're doing a lot of road work and things like that already for us on an ongoing basis. They have the information. So we have been consistent with respect to using our city engineer for road bond specific work. But that's not to say, of course, you can, as a council, say, for these larger projects we've been talking about, we'd like to ask the question on the front end going forward and decide where the council wants to go with each project. I think that's a very valid question.
And I was just gonna say basically the same thing. You said it nicer than I did. That's what we've done in the past, but using a large number like this, going out for bids, it has to be done sooner in the process.
Yes, no, I don't
So
disagree with that.
I
Yeah.
don't disagree with what you're saying. I know in the past that we've had a lot of times using the city engineer for this stuff. And other projects, we've been able to actually come in under bids too in the past because they already have some information. They don't duplicate it, but
Yeah,
For-
I don't disagree
so-
with it. It's just the numbers, we're talking, this total project just under
Right.
$4 million.
yep,
I mean, it's a big number for us, it's a $4 million project. I'm just saying the consensus was to look at all aspects of this because it is such a large number. It's gonna be the biggest dollar amount that we've done so far to date on any project like this. And that's what they're saying is we need to look at it. We're spending $4 million total.
well, is there any further discussion? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion on what the council would like to do. I'll make a motion that we accept the proposal as presented by Tom Blommer and Public Works Director in the memo with Jenny Mack, City Administrator, that we go ahead with the $260,000 the land surveying services, design plans and specifications for the 2025 road bond. That'll be my motion. Not hearing a second. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Motion passes. I don't know what your schedule is, Joe, with everything coming up, work-wise and everything. I know you're not gonna be able to, whatever, but, but let's maybe set a time, if you and Tom could get together and then set a time to have a workshop to discuss some of these processes, maybe once we get further down the line to see what works.
Yeah, we can, and staff can brainstorm
the
about
20
the timing of when we can have those conversations. We certainly can.
2026 road bond needs to be getting going right now. It
Yeah.
should be able to be doable. So let's have this conversation that we're just discussing before they get too deep into that. And then we can go out from there. And, if we take bids, we take bids. If we stick with what we got, but then we'll all be on the same page. Then-
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what we need to do because the dollar amount is just getting too large.
With everything.
Tom was projecting that the 26 road bond could be in excess of 7 million.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So then the next one, we're at 4, but yeah, Tom thinks, 7 to 8 million for the next one. I mean, it's just,
I don't,
no. That's what he had shared at one point.
oh,
I have about 5 million total between the two bonds.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
I mean,
Oh, he had,
Yeah.
well,
Well, I'm not sure. I thought
We'll-
that's what it was, but if it's
we'll make sure
different,
to
I'd
get on
like
the
to
same
know.
page.
But yeah, we'll figure that out. But
Right.
either way, it's a good thing to go through this and get the procedures down. So we're all.
because it's not only this, it just needs to carry through for everything.
A lot of
Parks,
things,
anything.
yes.
Yep.
Parks is a pretty good system, but yes, I understand what you're saying, and yes, that we should sit down and discuss that.
Next item is, continue on here, Liquor Committee recommendation, reference engaging PFM on financial analysis.
As noted in your packet, the Liquor Committee met on August 12th and is bringing forward a recommendation to engage PFM financial advisors to complete the financial analysis. This is the same thing we use with our sewer fund annually, so we would just bring them on board to help us with our cash flow analysis and that information to give us kind of a first look at bonding capacity and other financial information they can help us with as a starting point to continuing this potential project.
If there aren't any questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the Liquor Committee recommendation to engage PFM on a financial analysis for the pickle.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Here. Parks, proposal from Woodseth.
Real quick on the liquor stuff though, first, we want to update people. Before you're gonna do that, we talked about, do you want to just give a quick update?
I sure can. Tell me if I forget anything. As far as our liquor committee meeting, so we did talk about the financial analysis. We have been talking quite a bit about who we can bring on board to help with some visioning of the liquor fund, the pickle building for potential, if we have a new building, what components would that include? And we've talked a lot about trying to find the right person to help kind of walk us through those conversations and bring in other departments just to get some thoughts and feedback, make sure we're accounting for all the ideas and including that in our development of a potential new building. So we will continue to work on that once we get some financial information and then likely bring forward additional recommendations to the council here in the coming months as we get this going.
Where are we at on the possible expansion of the spirits?
That project is not planned to move forward. There was a couple of just different variables that basically, I think the property owner wasn't going to be viable for them to expand the building.
So that's null and void now.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Is that fair, Joe? Very
Yeah,
high level,
yeah.
but okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Amber.
Awesome, thank you. You guys did receive a memo today. I'm gonna go over it a little more in depth because you didn't have a whole lot of time to wrestle with it. So in your packet, you have a proposal from Woodseth for city park planning. Back in June, the Parks Commission recommended a fundraising goal of $600,000 to be put towards a DNR outdoor recreation grant. That grant has a maximum award of $350,000. So it's a pretty sizable grant. But even all combined, that doesn't get us to our full project cost. That grant has a lot of requirements to it. And so at the June council meeting, city council approved us working with Woodseth to obtain this proposal to help with getting the required documents for that grant. So everything in this proposal is based off of the previous year's grant. We don't know what's in the next cycle until December when that grant reopens again. We do anticipate that it'll be very similar and that a lot of this information is going to be valuable regardless. As we talk about the 2026 road bond, the community center parking lot is in that road bond. And so we need to do some of those evaluations sooner rather than later. With the playground, it does require specifications from a manufacturer. So we need to go through that process and figuring out a manufacturer in order to apply for the grant. When it comes to the survey work and stuff like that, before winter is preferable. So you have a list of things, and all of this is based off of the grant requirements, and then specifically outlining the park as a whole. So making sure that everything has its space when it comes time to touch that amenity in the park, that area of the park. And so you have the proposal here in front of you. Happy to answer any questions on the proposal with Bill, anything on the grant or park planning as a whole.
On the,
We need to do this to apply for the grant.
Correct.
What kind of chances do we have? Do you have any sense for that? Like, what are our odds?
We have received grants in the past, so we have 2 on City Park already. First one was 1976 and another one in 1995. And the grant does score very favorably for inclusive playgrounds specifically. So the more you can demonstrate that inclusivity, things like that are scoring very highly. And so it does fit really well into the criteria of the grant. But there's, you never know until you know.
But the chances of the city being able to receive this grant are
Never know.
slim to none if we don't have a proper
They're
grant
non,
put together.
Right.
Yeah, so it requires different maps and like specific color codings, and it's very in depth with, you know, it needs a cross section of your access. And then that access has to be 5 feet long. So it does have very specific criteria, or 5 feet wide. And so needing assistance from WIDSEF to help put some of this together. Some of the things under environmental I have done with the other grants, and so I can help in some of those areas. But a lot of the grants require very specific information and getting closer and closer to shovel ready. You basically get 1 full construction season for these grants and a little bit, a shoulder on each side. So you got to be very ready to go to get these grants. But like I said, regardless of if it's 2025, 2026, whenever we want to apply for it, we will need this information. We need it for the parks, the parking lot, for the road bond. There are things we need time with the playground company to design the playground and get those specifications. So there is a lot of coordinating. They do require a lot of specifications. And it does take time.
and we
So
are looking,
in conjunction with this, we are still trying to fundraise, and that's another level, but it is good information, and there's information we need for other aspects in decision-making as well.
the playground we're looking at is ADA compliant too. It's gonna be wheelchair accessible, that kind of, correct?
Correct.
Okay, where our current one really is not.
Wood chips do meet ADA, and we do have a couple elements, but the idea is that it's more all-encompassing,
Okay.
not just an element here or there.
So just a couple more questions. With this money, will it dictate what we do first, second, and third? For instance, the playground has to go in before the pickleball courts or vice versa?
In part of looking, so right now we just have the concept design. We need to get closer to actual. We need to start designating the area that the pickleball will go in, that the playground will go in. We've identified the playground and pickleball as kind of phase 1. If time will tell. I'm thinking if the money is not there and the playground infrastructure is close to its end of life, we're gonna have decisions to make. So I think in regard, it will give each element its respected space. It's gonna identify which buildings are staying, which buildings are going. That will help us develop that plan further. But again, in conjunction with our fundraising, there is an element of the unknown.
I think the city of Nisswa and Woodseth has a long-standing history together, right, Bill?
Pardon?
I think the city of Nisswa and WSN has a long history together, right?
Right.
A lot of upcoming projects we're gonna be utilizing your services for.
Correct.
This is a drop in the bucket relatively compared to what we just discussed.
They're all great projects.
Amen. However, any consideration, do you think, from WSN to be able to perhaps donate their services to be able to see this project come through. On the back end of it, I think there's going to be a bunch of additional services that WSN is going to be contracted for in the event of these projects come to fruition and we get the funding.
I can sure ask the people that, people above me, I guess, but my first guess is probably not, but I can sure ask. One of the things about this grant that Amber explained is that as far as like a grant goes, it asks for a lot of information. They really want to make sure it appears from the grant application that everybody is very, like, that you really want to do this project, that you're very, you're not gonna back out, that everything is, all your ducks are in a row, that you're not gonna have any issues with this, that they can move forward and that it doesn't die for whatever reason. Yeah, so, again, like Amber said, is a lot of the information that you're gonna collect, you're gonna probably keep and use on other projects, like the community center parking lot. Some of that information can be used for that, and it's because a lot of the park concept plan is, we need to fine tune that when we're doing the community center parking lot to make sure that we design the community center parking lot correctly to work with the concept plan for the park. Especially, everything is kind of intertwined together, the ball field, pickleball, and the playground area.
So this is just another conceptual plan on top of the one that we already have done?
No,
No.
no, it requires, like boundary lines for the park. It requires timelines and budgets. It requires cross sections and like some specifications for the pickleball court. We got to determine the surface material as we create that budget. So no, it is not updating concept design. It's bringing that concept design closer towards actual.
Right. So more defining the scope of work then?
Yes, I mean, the concept plan's big picture, 10,000 feet or higher, and we're gonna bring it in closer to ground level. Keep moving, getting closer and closer to the plans.
If you received the grant, just argumentatively, if we received it, how long do we have to do it? I mean, to spend the money, so to speak.
2 years,
Okay.
but it's a full construction season and a shoulder and a shoulder.
No, I understand that. I'm just,
Because our fiscal year is July 1st.
Amber, question, you noted kind of a distribution potential between calendar years. So is there a portion of this that you would like to hone in on for 24 to say, let's accomplish at least this much and potentially budget the rest in 25?
Yes, so
Or-
both in 2024 budget and 2025 budget, we do have professional service fees budgeted. Specifically, the survey work would be the top priority in getting that done before the snow flies. That area would be in the 2024 budget. As I've already put in there, some of the environmental stuff, I might be able to do some of that. So that one probably has the biggest wiggle room on it. And then as you get closer towards the civil category there, that more of that would likely be done in 2025. If we don't have the funds available, we're not applying for the grant in 2025.
Mhm.
So that would give us the whole year to then work through the rest of these items. But specifically the surveying work, because that is going to be a pressing topic with the road bond as well.
further questions for Amber? Anyone? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Or do we have any further discussion?
I would make a motion that we go ahead with what's presented here tonight. And hopes that we get it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Next item is City Hall improvement recommendations from the budget workshop.
Just to recap our discussion, the recommendations were to establish a building committee consisting of the Public Works Director, the Public Works Supervisor, and the City Administrator. Utilize Gordian contract through Sourcewell in partnership with Widseth and set up an initial meeting with Mike Englund with Widseth to really develop those recommendations for selecting a contractor, identifying a timeline, and bringing an updated estimate to the council for the next steps for consideration to move this project forward.
Questions, comments? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the city hall improvement recommendations as presented from the budget workshop.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Verizon cell tower site plan review, the recommendation is to table till September. I will make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 3 was approved non-union vacation leave schedule update.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Just an update from last month's meeting. Took an opportunity, not myself, but staff to poll the non-union staff regarding the proposed vacation leave schedule to see what their input was and feedback. So that is summarized here for you. Did present this information to the Personnel Committee, and the committee recommended bringing this to council for consideration effective January 1, 2025.
It is understood that if the city ends up going with accrual base versus lump sum, like we're doing it now, that's what's gonna happen. They know that.
I guess I wouldn't say that. I
Okay.
think, I
But-
think the bigger picture from a city perspective is ensuring we're consistent. If that makes sense, I suppose, but consistent across employee groups just for ease of payroll administration and things like that. So this recommendation would leave the system in place as is. If there's a broader discussion about that wants to continue, I think certainly that's a welcome conversation as part of other
Okay.
employee retention efforts, that kind of thing. So the only change for this would be just the simplification of the vacation schedule tiers as presented. Everything else would be the same.
Okay.
So is the employee retention committee or the personnel committee, I guess, engaging in those conversations or having?
Yes, we spoke with Jenny about it. She spoke about.
I shared the feedback that
Yeah, the
was,
feedback
that was
from-
obtained
yeah.
from staff for this specifically.
If that's what the non-union folks want, that's what the staff wants. I mean, that's okay. I mean, it would be no different than working with the unions. If the unions, we negotiate and agreed with what the unions, when we agree with what the unions want to do and we pass the contract. So I'm fine with it. It's up. So I don't know how you,
No comment.
okay. I mean, I don't know if we want to, if there's nothing stopping, right now we're in contract with all the unions, but it's definitely something that will, they're aware of, it'll be brought up. People want to do it, so council's decision, what we want to do. Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the modified non-union vacation leave schedule effective January 1st, 2025 as recommended by the Personnel Committee.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Mayor reports, we're almost done with the summer. It went fast. It flew by. So, I just, hope that, the school's gonna be back in soon, so let's everybody, and for the public safe, let's start watching the mirrors. Let's start looking for the kids and watch the yellow buses. So that's all I have. Mark?
I don't have anything.
Yes, I'd like to bring it up at the meeting here tonight here, recently, the last couple of weeks, while I spent a lot of time in downtown Nisswa on that, and, I was approached by, 3 different citizens on different issues and that. I got a lot of really good compliments about, Maggie. One of those individuals had a question about the bike trail, and I didn't really know that much about it, and Maggie is like my Google person. And so I go to her and she's my go-to person, and she gave me some really good direction. Got back to this guy, and I was able to answer his questions. He was very appreciative. He started going off on, I told him I'd contacted Maggie, and this guy just went on and on about Maggie, how helpful she is and things like that. And then he started in on Kiki, how great a job that she does for the city. And I mean, I was on the phone with this guy for 20 minutes, and we could have gone longer, okay? But I had to get going in that, and he was very, very grateful. And 2 other local residents and business people made similar comments and compliments about both these girls. And they really need to be appreciated. They do a lot for the city, and they work very hard, and they're go-to people, and we're really lucky to have them. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Jesse?
I second those comments. Kiki, you do a great job. And if Maggie was in here, I'd say the same thing, but that goes to all staff.
Yep.
You'll see, Steve, we have a great team here. Great team.
Yes, we
And a
do.
lot of fun challenges ahead, so we'll see how we can all work together through very exciting 2024, 5 and 6. Welcome to the team as well.
Joe? Nothing? Okay. Announcements and upcoming meeting dates are on the bottom of the agenda if anyone has any questions. So other than that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned. Thank you all for coming.